Good day. I'm going to show you real quick how to replace a tip on your Weller soldering iron. This applies to the Weller or soldering irons like the Weller that have the little nuts, and the soldering tip goes through the center of the nuts. And you'll need a few simple tools: crescent wrench, a marker. I'm going to use a T-square, and I'm going to use a pair of vice grips. Use the tools you have around. You don't have to go out and buy any special tools. This is pretty painless. First thing you want to do, we're going to stop for a second. First thing you want to do before you even do the first thing is, if you're having trouble with the tip heating and it's not broke, take your wrench and loosen and then tighten these nuts up. And you don't jump up and down on them, but get them pretty tight. What happens is, as the tip ages, the contact between the tip and these two holes starts to kind of oxidize in there, and it can reduce the efficiency of the tip. So you may not need to replace your tip, so check that first. Okay, let's say you've done that and it didn't do any good, or your tips just broke. First thing you want to do is remove these two nuts. Okay, so you're going to set the soldering iron off the side. And you can use a normal pair of pliers, but I like vice grips because they provide some extra grip. On there, on the end, it's bent over in an L shape. And that L shape goes through the ends and into these little holes. And then these nuts clamp down onto there, and that's how that makes contact. So the first thing you're going to do is take your pliers and try and straighten those L shapes out as best as you can. If it's broken half and you don't care about the tip, I'm just doing this because I might want to use this tip later for some junk. You can take some side cutters and just cut the ends off and make it easier. And like this one, the straighter you get it, the easier it's going to come off if you're going to try and salvage the tip. Like I said, if you're not, use some side cutters and just bite the thing off. It'll save you a lot of time. And of course this one's going to be a bear. Okay. So the next thing you're going to do is, I use a magic marker. You could use a scribe or a knife or a pencil, anything you can see the mark. And what you're going to do is you're going to come in 1/8 of an inch from the end approximately, mark with your marker. So what I've done is I've used this T-square and I've marked it, set it up for 1/8 of an inch. Then I'm just going to mark that there and there. So now you've got these two marks there. The second thing you're going to do here is put these nuts back on. This is a pretty important step because if you forget it, you're going to hate yourself. It's going to make your life pretty miserable. Now, one thing you need to do is to try really hard to make these two marks you've got bend in the same plane. What I mean by that is across this way. If you accomplish that, it'll make the tip go into the gun a lot easier, and you won't have to mess with it so much. And this is pretty simple. My suggestion is you bend them both the same direction. What I do is I mark them and I grab them with the vice grips just so that mark just sits on the tip, and try and square it up in the vice grips and then clamp it shut. And then you got it in there, and try and make sure it's all in line. Sometimes it takes a few tries. It's no big deal. Just take your time. If you have pliers, try and do this. but you're going to have to hold it. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bend this over, and I find just the heel of my thumb works the best. And it's that easy. You just bend it over. And now you've got that little L shape on there. The second one will be more difficult because you've got this nut on there, so try your best to get that nut up as far as you can. I know it's a pain. It used to be years ago, these tips were a little longer. And I'm going to badmouth the manufacturer here. They found that they can shorten them up and get them to work, but then they save like a 1/4 inch of copper. And I suppose in the big scheme of things that doesn't sound like a lot, but a 1/4 inch of copper over thousands and thousands of tips is quite a bit of money. So again, just line that up, the edge of your mark, clamp it, and then just bend it over. And it doesn't have to be perfectly 90 degrees. The other thing you could do is you could use a crescent wrench to bend it over. You can use pliers, you can use needle nose. The one with the nut on the short side will be more difficult, and you might have to use needle nose. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to make it bend over, and you're trying to make it in the same plane. And that one's pretty good. Okay. There are holes on both sides of this gun, so it doesn't matter which way you bend that. Now, from the factory, these tips are installed with the straight part up, although I have seen people install them the other way around. There's no wrong way to do this. All you're worried about is just getting the tip in there. If you want to do it the factory way, you insert the legs there, and they'll go into the holes, and then just slowly start jostling around the tip until it lines up. And usually the short one will be the one that'll be a tough one. If you have trouble getting it in there, make sure that that's all real clean, that those nuts are clean. Use a little wire brush or just wipe it off with some paper towel or something. And start them by hand. Don't use the wrench right away. You'll cross thread the things, and then you'll have a mess that won't stop. Those nuts are kind of hard to find. The hardware stores used to carry them. They don't seem to anymore. Apparently nobody solders anything. But what I believe is really happening is the new version of this gun has 2 little set screws on there, which are, in my opinion, worthless. They strip out. They're nothing but a pain. So just slowly tighten that up. You know, you can back it off and tighten it. Okay, you're just about done. Like I said, this works on the bigger guns too, like the Weller, the D550. This is a Weller 8200N, works on the 8200. Radio Shack, I don't have any stock in Radio Shack, so nobody will care. They made a gun, or they had a Weller, Radio Shack branded Weller manufactured gun. Montgomery Ward's had one. There's been a lot of people over the years. Miller's Falls had one. There's been a lot of people that have Weller brand their name on these guns. They've been around a long time. They're a real workhorse. Okay, so you've got it back in. It's pretty tight. It's on there pretty straight.